My wife's brother kept bringing his dogs to our house despite my allergies. The first time Kyle brought his German Shepherds to our house, I was clearing plates from dinner when I felt my throat start to close. My eyes watered and swelled within minutes. I excused myself to take Benadryl in the bathroom while my wife Rachel laughed with her brother in the living room. When I came back out 20 minutes later with my face puffy and red, Kyle looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not concern exactly, but something more calculating. He said his dogs were emotional support animals, and he couldn't leave them home alone. Rachel touched my arm and asked if I could just deal with it this once, because Kyle really needed family support. I said yes because it was one dinner. That was 8 months ago, and I've been wheezing through antihistamines ever since. Kyle started showing up 2 or 3 times a week, always with the dogs, always with some reason why he needed to visit. His apartment was being fumigated. His neighbor was having construction done. He needed to borrow tools or just wanted to see his sister. The dogs would follow me from room to room, keeping close enough that my allergies constantly kicked in. Rachel said they were just being friendly, and I was overreacting. But I'd spend every visit with swollen eyes and a closing throat, taking double doses of allergy medication just to breathe in my own home. My allergist, Dr. Patel, finally told me I was developing chronic asthma from constant allergen exposure. She said if I didn't eliminate the source completely, I'd end up with permanent respiratory damage. I came home from that appointment ready to set boundaries. I explained to Rachel what Dr. Patel said about permanent damage. I told her we needed to ask Kyle to stop bringing the dogs, that we could meet him at restaurants or parks instead. Rachel's face went cold, and she said Kyle's mental health needs were more important than my mild discomfort. I showed her the inhaler prescription and medical notes about developing asthma. She said I was being dramatic and trying to exclude her brother. She said Kyle had been through a lot with his divorce and job stress. I asked if my health mattered at all, and she said of course it did, but I could just take medication like millions of other people with allergies. She walked out before I could respond. 2 days later, Kyle showed up unannounced at 3 p.m. on Thursday. I was working from home when I heard the garage door open and dog nails clicking across hardwood floors. I found Kyle letting his German Shepherds into my house with a key I didn't know he had. Rachel was at work until 6 p.m. I asked what he was doing, and he said Rachel gave him a garage code and key for emergencies. I asked what the emergency was, and he said he'd had a panic attack and needed a safe place. The dogs headed toward my office, sniffing around my desk and chair. Kyle said they were trained to provide deep pressure therapy and needed to check the house for threats. My throat started itching and eyes watering. I told Kyle he couldn't be here with the dogs when Rachel wasn't home. He said Rachel had specifically told him he could come over anytime. I called Rachel at work and she answered annoyed. I explained Kyle was at the house with the dogs even though she wasn't home. She said she'd given Kyle permission to use our house as a safe space during mental health crises, and I was being unsupportive. I said I was literally developing asthma from his dogs. She said we'd talk when she got home and hung up. Kyle was standing in the hallway listening. He smiled and said it sounded like Rachel had his back, then walked into my bedroom with both dogs following. I watched them move around my personal space, sniffing my clothes and circling my side of the bed. Kyle said they were checking for threats. I asked him to leave, and he said he'd leave when he felt calm enough to drive safely. That took another 90 minutes, during which I sat in my car taking antihistamines. This pattern continued for 3 months. Kyle would show up unannounced, always when Rachel wasn't home, always with some mental health emergency. I'd come home to find him in my bedroom or office, the dogs positioned around my belongings. He'd be on his phone or watching TV in my living room. I started documenting every incident with timestamps and photos, pictures of the dogs in my bedroom, Ring doorbell screenshots showing Kyle arriving when Rachel was at work, copies of my increased medication prescriptions. I showed Rachel the documentation one evening, and what she said made things a lot worse. To see the full story, click the link below or go on my channel.